My name is Ben Newberger. This is the Basement Breakdown. This is an MMA-based podcast, which will hopefully garner some attention. What I'll basically be doing is talking about the UFC, as well as other federations, such as Bellator and PFL, but they're kind of, PFL bought out Bellator, so that. I'll also be covering, some boxing, because that also very much interests me. As you can see, this side we got a little Rocky 3 poster there. So yeah, I'll be talking a little bit about boxing as well. And honestly, combat sports as a general, you never know. Karate, combat is another one. There's all these different federations, so there's a lot going on in the combat world. So a lot to talk about for sure. Me personally, I never really grew up watching UFC or really mixed martial arts as a whole. I mean, besides maybe my parents making me do karate as a kid, that was about it. When I entered university, Queen's University, shout out, me and my friends would get together and we'd watch some of the UFC cards, on the weekends and stuff. And it's hard for me to think actually the first UFC card that really made me really fall in love. But I should probably think about that. But yeah, it was around that time where I started really getting into it more, and I would tune in almost every week when I could to watch UFC. As I was saying though, not much of a background in mixed martial arts. It was mostly basketball and baseball growing up. So yeah, it was a whole new different experience for me watching a bunch of guys punch each other in the face. And as well as that, jiu-jitsu and just the whole range of mixed martial arts. It's just a really cool spectacle, and I really fell in love with it. And it's just great to do with your friends, watch a UFC card, you guys all, you bet some money, and hopefully you guys walk away with a little bit at the end of the night. We got a very nice card actually coming up this weekend, which I would argue, it's a fight night in Abu Dhabi. I would actually argue that it might be more of a stacked card than UFC 312, which, people will be paying for. Of course, I'll be, streaming it. Unfortunately, Dana White's been cracking down on a lot of the illegal streaming going on, so me and my friends might have to pool some money together to purchase that so we can watch it without any lagging, because it's important to me to watch what's going on in real time. And support the fighters, of course, These guys, some of these guys get paid, $10,000 a show and $10,000 a win or something like that, whatever it is. Anyways. The card coming up this weekend, highlighted by Israel Adesanya versus Nasruddin Imavov. Israel Adesanya is coming off of a loss against Dricus du Plessis. I personally believe that this fight is going to be a big dictator of, what's next for Izzy. He had an interview today with MacLife, and I'm sure the other, it was the media day for UFC. So he said a couple things. He looked composed. And he seems more free, I guess I would say, in his speech. He talks as himself as more of a contender now and someone who's almost happy with what he's done. So whatever comes forward is kind of just what it is. I don't know if that's a bad thing necessarily or a good thing. I mean, he's a great fighter, but Nasruddin Imavov, he's a guy he's kind of dangerous right now. He's coming off of some decent wins against Jared Cannonier, which was a good fight. Some people think it was a controversial, it was a little bit controversial, but realistically speaking, towards the end, Nasruddin was having his way with him. And the previous fight before this fight was against Brendan Allen, which I, thought Imavov was going to win, contrary to some of my friends' beliefs. I believe Brendan Allen held him down the entire first round. And then the second round, Imavov kind of did his thing. He got Brendan Allen down. Then the third round was more of Imavov showing his striking on the feet. I personally think the way he gets Izzy is if he gets him against the cage, maybe he gets on his back. They're both good on the feet. So I think it's going to be a really good fight. I'm going to go with Israel Adesanya, me personally. I think that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to show up and show out, and he's going to show everybody why he's still a contender. The guys he's lost to have been Alex Pereira, Sean Strickland, and Dricus du Plessis, all champions and all great fighters in their own right. No shame. Going down the card, we have Sharaputin Magomedov. He's the one-eyed Dagestani who actually, contrary, he didn't actually train with Khabib at his gym because he refused to cut his hair. And at their gym I'm going to mess up the name. Their gym, they have a rule where you got to have a shaved head. You can't look pretty. When you're a champion, the girls will come. And they're not so concerned with that. My point being, he wasn't training with Khabib. This guy's more of a striker, and he's going up against Michael Venom Page. And this will be his third fight in the UFC. Michael Venom Page, as most of you guys who watch MMA know, fought in Bellator. And then we kind of got him, well, not we, the UFC got him towards kind of the end of, I believe, last year. So at the age of 36 years old, we got Michael Venom Page. And then we threw him in there against Kevin Holland, which was a good matchup. And Michael Venom Page did his thing. And then with Ian Gary, which, he lost, but was a good fight, showed up on the feet. And now we have him versus Shara. And these guys, as far as I know, are just going to stand and bang with each other. So Shara Putin's got one eye. Michael Venom Page. He's a very clean striker, and he's so elusive. Shara's last win was very good. He had to be fair though, he was having a close fight with Armen Petrosyan. Yeah, great fight. And then he hits him with the spinning back fist, and then we all know what happens. One of the best knockouts of the year. I'm going to have to go with Michael Venom Page here. I think he's going to be elusive, and I think if they're both going to stand with each other, then I just think he's going to he's just going to get outpointed by him. I could be wrong, but I'm going to go with Michael Venom Page. Next, we have Sergey Pavlovich versus Jarizo Rosenstrike. I butchered Sergey's first name, sorry. This is a heavyweight banger, sort of. Sergey is coming off of 2 losses, versus Volkov, which was a decision, and they both trained together, so I think Sergey was a little upset, and then he obviously got knocked out by Tom Aspinall. But before that, he was on a very good streak. He's got a lot of power in those hands. Big Jarizo, he's a little older. His last win was against Tai Tuivasa, which was, I remember when one of the judges gave that a 30-27 to Tai. I'm pretty sure they relieved the judge of their duties for the rest of the card because of how ridiculous that was. But he won. Tai Tuivasa's on a pretty big losing skid, so I don't really pay that any mind, to be fair. I'm sorry. His last fight before that was against Shamil Gaziev, who's fighting also. Shamil Gaziev, he pooped out at altitude. That was the first time I've ever seen someone tap out because they were too tired. That's how Jarizo won. He was having his way with him, but Sergey's a big step up in competition, and I personally I think Sergey's probably going to knock him out. That's my opinion. We got Mike Davis versus Fares Ziam. I think if Mike Davis' time to do it, it's now. I think he's probably favorited, if I'm not mistaken. He's a little older. Faraz' last fight was against Matt Frevola, my God, which was the name I brought up earlier when I was talking about the bantamweight fight. That was a vicious knockout. And then before that, Claudio Puels, probably pronounced that wrong. I'm not sure if I even watched that fight. But I do think that Mike Davis is probably going to take it. I think that he's favored for a reason. I think that he's got some good hands, and I think if he knows that his time is now. So that's the last for the main card, as Ikram Alaskarov versus Andre Muniz got canceled. The rest of the card, I think I'll just keep going the way I was going. Muhammad Naimov versus Khan Offley. I think that Muhammad Naimov is going to win. Am I completely confident in that? No, but we'll see. Shamil Gaziev, right? The guy who gassed out against Jarizo Rosenstrike. Thomas Peterson. Thomas Peterson's pretty fat. It says here Shamil Gaziev weighs about 1 kilogram more than him. He's 9-2. Who was his last fight? Did he beat Muhammad Usman? Was that what it was? Yeah, he beat Muhammad Usman, which is a good decision win, I guess. I think Shamil Gaziev's going to win. I think he's going to win a decision, probably like a 29-28 potentially. Yeah, that's what I think. I think Thomas Peterson's too fat. And Shamil Gaziv's fat, but like I think he's a little better. I guess. It's the heavyweight division. You know, a lot of fat guys. All right, Terrence McKinney. So, yeah, probably one of the only guys who's ever responded to me on Instagram. I think he was calling out, what was it, maybe Benoit Saint-Denis, I think, or something, and I commented, like, how the hell are you gonna call out a guy who's ranked after you just got knocked out? Anyways, Terrence McKinney. I think that they probably scoured the roster to find this guy, Damir Hadzovic. I actually don't know who this is. You know, I mean, you call me a fraud, or I don't watch UFC or whatever. I mean, this guy's been around for a while. He's 8 years old, the Bosnian bomber. How many Bosnian dudes are in the UFC? I don't know, probably not a lot, but he's repping it. He hasn't fought in a while, which worries me for him. And then his last fight was against Mark Diakese, who I don't even think is in the UFC anymore, and he lost. Yeah, Terrence McKinney should win this. If he's not getting viciously knocked out, I mean, then, you know, he's beating a bum. I think he was a prospect. I think he wins this fight. I think if he doesn't, I mean, he's 30 years of age, but it might be a good idea to cut him from the UFC because, you know, one man can only receive so much head trauma. But I don't see Damir knocking him out. Terrence McKinney. Moving forward, Mero Bueno Silva versus Jasmine Jasduvicius. I probably butchered that. Mayra Bueno Silva, I'm pretty sure she's actually not favorited for this fight. Her last fight was against Macy Chasson, which I actually watched at my cottage. Yeah, that was one of the worst cuts I've ever seen in a female fight, which is why I was stopped. That thing was atrocious. But, I mean, Macy Chasson is a very tall woman for this division, even though it is bantamweight. I mean, she's just very tall, and she got her. So that's what happened with that. And now she moves on to fight Jasmine. I think Jasmine's pretty good. I've watched a couple of her fights, I believe. She fought Ariane Lipsky. Yeah, Fatima Klein. I mean, I've probably seen some of those on the prelims. I think that Mayra Bueno Silva has a very good chance of winning this fight. I think that she's fought against some top-level competition. I think it's a little ignorant to make her an underdog in this fight, but, you know, maybe I'm talking out of my ass. I think Mayra Bueno Silva is probably going to win this. Jordan Levitt got canceled. That sucks. The Monkey King is his name. That's an interesting dude. He does some zesty stuff in the octagon, but he fought Paddy, I believe. Was that his last fight? Paddy? Whatever, canceled. We got two more. We got Bogdan Grad versus Lucas Alexander. I'm going to go with Bogdan. Why? I actually don't know, but let's just do it. And then Hamdi Abdelwahab versus Jamal Pokes. I've seen him fight before. I have not. It's going to be a heavyweight fight. You know, I see this ending in a 29-28. I think Hamdi's going to win it. You know, I think it's going to be a heavyweight fight that Hamdi's going to take. Because he's undefeated, I guess. Well, that's the end of the card. That's a fight night. For those people who have ESPN Plus, I believe, you get to watch that for free. So I'll definitely be doing that this Saturday with a couple of my buddies. I'm not confident in all those picks. I would say I'm confident in a good four of them. We're not going to go all the way, but you know, I'll have it in mind, which is good. I genuinely think that the free fight night is better than the actual UFC card that's coming up. That's a pay-per-view. I can go through that very quickly. I mean, Dricus Du Plessis is fighting Sean Strickland for a rematch. I mean, that's going to be a great fight. I'm excited. I'm going to stay away from it as far as, you know, making any bets or anything because I'm a little, I'm confused, you know. I personally think that Sean Strickland won the first match against Dricus. It was very close. Sean's style, I think, is, you know, it's not going to change much. It's kind of, I don't want to say easy to figure out, but like maybe now that he's had 5 rounds in him, Dricus changes some things. It's a good fight. Then you got Weili Zhang versus Tatiana Suarez. I mean, that's a good fight. Tatiana Suarez deserves a title shot. She's undefeated. She's very good. I think she has a chance against Weili Zhang, but I'm not actually sure that she wins. Weili had a good last fight where she actually got dropped. I think she's getting a little older maybe. I mean, she's great. She's 35. Tatiana Suarez is 34, but without the mileage. I think Weili Zhang can probably win it, but I think there's a good chance Tatiana Suarez puts up a good fight. But then the rest of this card is just dog shit. Like, it really is. It's just Justin Tafa versus Talishan Teixeira, who I'm not sure was actually supposed to be the opponent. He was fighting Jimmy Crute, fighting Rodolfo Bellato. It's not a bad fight, I guess, at light heavyweight, but I believe Jimmy Crute was supposed to fight on the prelim, so they just moved this to the main card. And then we got Jake Matthews versus Francisco Prado. It's not a bad fight, but does it belong on a pay-per-view main card? No. Like, it just doesn't. And then you go down the card. There's some good fights. You got Alexandre Topuria fighting, Ilya Topuria's brothers fighting on the prelims, and you got, I mean, there's some guys fighting. Park Hyung Sung's undefeated. There's some guys, man, that you could tune in to watch. Like, it's not a bad card, I guess, but it's not a pay-per-view is what I'm saying. So, yeah, I definitely won't be paying for that. Something I thought that was funny to mention. That's been talked about a lot, and I'd probably be the last person to you guys here talk about it right now, so, but whatever. Kevin Holland recently got on to Rampage Jackson's podcast, which in my opinion is probably like the hottest MMA fighter podcast, where they're just like bringing guys on and like having cool conversations. And I like TJ Dillashaw and Luke Rockhold as like co-host. It's really cool what they're doing over there, so that's fun. But they have Rampage has Kevin Holland on, right? And they have a little bit of beef because when Kevin fought Michael Venom Page, and Michael Venom Page did the whole snake thing, and Kevin went like this, Rampage made a joke about it, I guess. Whatever. But he comes in pretty heated. The point of it is what I'm trying to say is Kevin hits him with he starts talking about a 45-70. He's like, I don't got an ego unless you're talking about shooting a 45-70, which is a caliber of gun. I'm really not too familiar with firearms. I watch a lot of movies, but I don't own one myself because I live in Canada, and that's an extensive process to go through. But yeah, you know, he keeps being like, he keeps hitting him with this 45-70 thing, being like, oh, you don't know what a 45-70 is? Fuck you, I don't like you and stuff. And it's just kind of like, dude, at a point it kind of gets old, bro. It's like, Kevin's a fun guy who, when he came into the UFC, I mean, like, his style's super fun. He's got a kung fu background. He's got a fun personality. He likes to smoke weed and stuff or whatever. He doesn't care, right? And it's great. But it comes to a point where you've been in the UFC for a while and now you're on a podcast with a champion and you're kind of like, you're saying a little bit of bullshit. It's like, you're talking about not caring and smoking weed and, like, you know, slipping out the back when you're supposed to be sparring and stuff. And it's like, that's not the mindset of a champion. And that's fine. Make your money, be entertaining. You are. I mean, if you lose another fight, you might be out of the UFC, which I'll get to in just a second. But his last fight, Roman de Ridder, I bet against Kevin Holland. And I knew he was going to get submitted the second that fight was announced. Regardless, listen, Kevin's a fun guy, but you can't really go onto a champion's podcast and be talking shit when you just... And, I mean, it followed suit. Karma's a bitch. He lost. He was on the podcast 2 days before his fight, and he lost. The MMA world is, like, going after him right now and, yeah, hammering him. So I'm pretty sure he's getting what he deserves. Kevin's a fun guy, but, you know, that wasn't cool. And, yeah. But I just sent this to my friend, and he didn't believe me. I'm not sure if it's 100%, but Gunnar Nelson is rumored to fight Kevin Holland, and he posted the story. Got rid of the X, back at welterweight, lock-in twin, I'm a C all around. Kevin Holland versus Gunnar Nelson. I don't know what the truth of this is, but this is hilarious. This is probably a retirement fight. He's moving back to 170, which I think is smart. But yeah, it's pretty funny now that he's fighting Gunnar Nelson. Yeah. That was just a little bit of a fun story. Yeah, in other news, I mean, you know, the Paul brothers are supposed to fight each other. That was announced yesterday. The validity of that, I'm not sure. I don't really want to see it because I know it's going to be scripted to some extent. I mean, there's 1,000 more. Is Jake going to fight a real boxer? No, he's going to fight like a CGI'd Muhammad Ali, or they're going to get Jimmy Carter from the grave to fight him or something, whatever. Good businessman, but I mean, like, dude, what the hell? I don't even think they're gonna fight, whatever. But that's news, I guess. Well, thank you so much, guys, for listening. That was just kind of one of my first things I kind of thought I'd get out of the way, maybe just going over a fight night. I think as I kind of grow with this whole thing, like I'll, come more prepared and stuff, but, talking in front of a camera is a little awkward for me at least, so it's good to kind of get it out of the way. UFC is a great sport, and, it's actually now my favorite sport, I can say that. I got a lot of LeBron James posters and MJ posters in my room, but I've replaced those with Fedor Emelianenko, Jens Pulver, Minotauro, a lot of guys, I really love UFC, I like mixed martial arts. I'm happy to be able to share my opinions and hopefully more content with you guys. And yeah, we'll see you next week.